You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So I'm going to go back on your phrase on the really close aspect on this.
Okay.
If Justus Ross-Simmons is 100%, play him. He's 100%.
Absolutely.
Let him go. If he's under 100%,
nope, don't play him.
Do not play him. Don't
so
do
it. Don't re-aggravate it. Yeah.
Here's why. There's a couple reasons why. If he re-aggravates that injury because it's a hamstring, I promise you he can be out another month.
Agreed. Or if not longer.
I'm speaking from experience on this. If you can re-aggravate that thing in a heartbeat. Okay? That's number one. Number two, let's look at their schedule coming up for Syracuse, all right?
Mm-hmm.
We got Stanford this week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know, and we can get into a second, that the spread is actually closer than you may think. I think for all intents and purposes, we think Syracuse is going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you don't necessarily need Justus Ross-Simmons.
Right.
Next week is Holy Cross. I mean, like that game I'm excited for because I think that's a Jamie Tremble, Emmanuel Ross, Yassine Willis, Michael Johnson Jr. game. I mean, I'm talking about all the backups, all the true freshmen.
Right.
That's the game to get them all in because they're gonna roll over Holy Cross. That is the type of game that's going to be 56-0. It's going to be almost like Wagner a couple of years ago when they had to do 10-minute quarters in the second half. So you're also not going to need Justus Ross-Simmons for that one either. But coming up after that is UNLV.
That's going to be a tough game.
That's going to be a tough one. I think you need all hands on deck for that UNLV game. Mm-hmm. That is really going to be a tough one on the road against one of the better group of 5 teams. In fact, I'm seeing that they might be the representative from the group of 5 in the college football playoff. That's a tough one.
At least one or two projections for that this week. I mean, obviously that stuff changes from week to week. But they're ranked, at least in the AP. So
if Justus Ross-Simmons is 100%, for the Stanford game, if he is 100% ready to go, absolutely, you play him because he's 100%. And I think what I mean is no risk of aggravating the injury. Like he's ready to go.
Great point, Jackson.
But if he's not ready to go, if he's 95%, hold him out. There's no reason to play him.
I was going to say, what's the risk reward? What's the benefit there? So, I mean, obviously getting him game reps, getting him in there, sure. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
With a hamstring injury, you can just run down the field and pull it. Like it's one of those fluky injuries that happens. So if he's 100%, he can't re-aggravate it, play him. If he can re-aggravate the thing, don't do it. Like just hold him out, live to fight another day. See you for week 5 against UNLV, or technically I think that's week 6 because we had a bye week. But you get the idea. Game 5. Against UNLV when Syracuse is hopefully 4-0. It probably will be. I guess now is the time we can get to the fact that the point spread is actually less than 10 points. When I check FanDuel, it's 9.5.
Yep.
I hate mentioning this phrase because I think we know that we think Syracuse is going to win. And I mentioned this to you before we recorded this.
Yeah.
You think this could be a trap game? Is that what the line is saying to you?
Well, it's tough. I never pretend to know what odds makers or what info they have that I don't have.
More than us.
A lot of times they're fairly accurate with their spreads. So
most of the time they had the over under for Florida State at 9.5 wins. Guess what? If you bet the under, it already hit for you.
Looking good there. Yeah. Trap game. I don't know if it's a trap game. I think it's a game, again, coming off a bye week, and Stanford's coming off a bye week. And it's their first ever meeting. It's a Friday night game on ESPN. I think it's a game that Syracuse should win and will win, but they need to be just like with every game. They just need to be locked in, and I think they will be, given who I think Fran Brown is as a person and a coach and his staff. But am I surprised about the line being 9.5? Probably a little bit. I mean,
Yeah, I was thinking like 14.
Stanford's 1-1. They beat Cal Poly. They lost at home to TCU by 7. It's not like they've looked overly impressive, but it's not like they got blown out in one game. I mean, they're obviously Cal Poly is not, an overly, daunting foe. But they're 1-1.
It literally was just like, I do not care about Cal Poly. I don't care.
No, yeah. I mean, they won 41-7 or something. I mean, it is what it is. But again, Stanford's 1-1. We're 2-0. We're fringe just outside the top 25. I don't necessarily think if Syracuse wins, they'll get into it. It just depends on what other teams do that are kind of hovering around that same area. And I don't really, to be honest with you, care about. I mean, it's cool to say, or top 20. I mean, if they keep winning games, they're going to be in the top 25. So I don't really care about that right now. I don't think it's a trap game. I think they're going to be locked in, and I think they're going to win. I actually am predicting they're going to win by less than 9.5, but that's just because I feel like Stanford's just going to, their first ACC game ever, they're just going to kind of keep it close. But I hope I'm wrong. We'll see. What about you? You think it's a trap game?
I want to be honest with people. I think Syracuse is going to win, and I think they're going to blow them out. But at the same time, it does kind of give off that the line is what stares me. At full disclosure, it's totally the point spread that is staring me. When it came out, and I'm like 9.5, I'm like, ooh, is there something I'm missing? Is there something that is off? Well, what's going on here? Because they typically know more than I do. More than most of us do. There's a reason why, those bookies are able to, keep having people on their site, and they're able to, do a lot of things because they're generally more right than they are wrong.
Agreed.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, Syracuse should win. They should blow them out. They are better than this Stanford team, even though, yes, it is within the conference. But yeah, the point spread's like 9.5. I'm like, what am I missing? Is Ashton Daniels the Stanford quarterback? Is he someone that's gonna come into the dome and just light us up? He's a very mobile guy.
Yes.
This is another mobile quarterback that we're going against. This is the third game in a row that we are playing a mobile quarterback.
Yeah. And Jackson, that what you just said a second ago is the main kind of sticking point for me. I still don't necessarily think it's a trap game.
Yeah.
But the line, and again, I'm not a huge betting person, but the line, given that they're at home, gives me a little bit of pause. What am I missing? So
Stanford has a pretty weak secondary. I documented that on Sunday's podcast. I said on the podcast that they made TCU's quarterback look like Joe Montana. Okay, so if you have a weak secondary and you're going against Syracuse, that's a problem.
That is a problem.
That is a huge problem for the opposition. It's if you can't stop the pass against Kyle McCord and company, you're in trouble. So what am I missing in that regard? I know their run defense actually held up pretty well against TCU. I'll give them that. They have a mobile quarterback, as I just mentioned, in Ashton Daniels, and they have an elite wide receiver on the outside in Elic Ayomanor who could cause problems. He is their main guy. He might be the best player on their entire team. So I understand that, look, they have good players. Sure. I'm like, man, I don't know. Maybe I must be missing something. I guess it's because it's within the conference.
Yeah.
That the spread is within 10 points, but that's the only reason why I'm like, man, maybe this is a trap game and I'm missing something. But I'm not going to give a score prediction yet, but I think Syracuse is going to win pretty handily.
I hope you're right. You usually are. Well, it'll be interesting to see if
am I more right than the bookies?
I mean, who is not at our level, brother. It'll be interesting to see if former Syracuse quarterback Justin Lamson gets in at all.
Yes, that's right. But he's not the. See, I would have given that more attention if he was the starter. He's not the starter.
No, he's not. No,
I'm not going to give a whole deep dive into a guy who chances are is not going to play. You're back.
No, the other guy won out. I mean, they battled. It was a quarterback battle. It wasn't. I've read some stuff about it. It wasn't there was competition there, but the other guy won out, and he's he's leading the team in total rushing yards right now, and he's been solid from the quarter from a throwing standpoint, and like they definitely have a very good wide receiver. So I don't know. I just think that as long as Syracuse is consistent in all three phases, doesn't have silly turnovers, mistakes, it has a nice rhythm. I'm not saying Stanford can't hang around some, but I just think Syracuse will overpower them just by sheer
talent.
McCord, the receivers, the Quint, the run game. If the defense is solid and special teams is better, yeah, I just think they're going to win.